Hello and welcome back to DEE Kai, Digital Era Entertainment's weekly anime podcast. I am your host, Joel, and joining me live on the line is Jace.
You thought you were done with 2024, but it was us, DEE Kai!
And Neo Ivan.
Hello.
And yes, indeed, it's been a minute. We've been very busy with positive things, at the very least, between my traveling to Japan, multiple conventions, other things, holidays, etc. It's probably actually been the longest hiatus that we have ever taken, which is to say approximately a month and a half, like 5 weeks, I don't know. That is exceedingly rare for us. It has been very weird. We have all been kind of behind and are catching up on stuff. And, well, we need to do the 2024 Anime of the Year. We're much later than usual. In the past, we have gotten this done either the last week of the year or the first week of the year. Usually before a lot of YouTubers and other folks get their stuff out. We're late to the game this time, but so be it. Here we are. We are ready for our 2024 Anime of the Year awards. We have a couple of standard rules that I want to go over. First and foremost, we evaluate shows here that are new. So, Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War second season doesn't count. Second season of Frieren doesn't count. Continuation of Urusei Yatsura or whatever, One Piece isn't eligible. Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 isn't eligible, whatever. It has to be something new. If it is a full-on reboot, that is allowed. For instance, a couple years back, we had the reboot of Fruits Basket as our number 4, because that is not a continuation. That is a, from the start, redoing the thing. And that we count. We don't count movies. We do count OVAs. This is something we might actually have to sort of revisit in the future, because some OVAs and ONAs are essentially movies chopped into bits. But that's problems for future us, not today us. And the other major rule we have is the lovingly titled Emmy rule, which is the spirit of the rule that is, we do not evaluate shows wherein we have a personal friend who is a lead in a show. So if there's a bit part, supporting role, cameo, whatever, we'll still count it, because if we didn't, otherwise we'd probably lose out on half the shows, because Emmy is in a lot of things these days. And in the past, the Emmy rule has actually, in some ways, made our life easier by disqualifying some top contenders for Anime of the Year and making our choices easier. I'm looking at you, Cyberpunk Edge Runners.
Cyberpunk or
Apothecary
Diaries.
Yeah, there have been a good couple. This year, I don't think it made as much of a difference as usual. A lot of her work has been continuations of existing really strong series. The 3 that she had leads in this year, from what we could find, was The Demon Sword Master of Excalibur Academy, Why Does Nobody Remember Me in This World, and Seirei Goseki Spirit Chronicles. Emmy, obviously one of the original hosts of this very show. We send her our love constantly. It is so incredible to see her continuing to just kick ass, going to so many conventions. It is the best possible reason for her to have had to have left this podcast. Maybe someday folks will stumble across the old episodes and be like, dang, Emmy Lowe used to slum it with these losers? So Emmy is always just such a delight. We were so grateful to them for, being on the show when they were, and that we're happy that they're just kicking ass out there now. But we usually have our top 10 here, and then 6 honorable mentions. Why 6? Why not 5? Fun fact, it was a matter of convenience, because back in the day when we did videos for these, we did a 1-minute honorable mention reel wherein each was 10 seconds. So 6, 60 seconds, 1 minute. That was just convenience of video editing, because
clips.
Doing 50 seconds felt kind of weird, and
it would either be that or like 4 honorable mentions. 15-second clips,
something like that. We don't do the videos anymore. It's just frankly not worth the time for us, but we still like doing this every year and discussing them. So we have our 10 ranked top 10, our 6 honorable mentions, but we've also expanded things a little bit this year with some specialty awards. Now, we might change this up in the future. We might keep some, we might change some. This is our show, and we get to do whatever the heck we want here. And that's basically the mentality we
The
took
points
when
don't
adding
matter.
these. Yeah, exactly. That is the mentality we took when adding our 3 sort of caption awards here. I think 2 of them may continue. One is a very specific instance. The first is the Digital Era Bias Award. This one probably won't be used as often, but we're also going to call this the Code Geass Award, because the Digital Era Bias Award goes to Code Geass, Rosé, the Recapture. Here's your reference, folks. It's more Code Geass, and we're such Code Geass fanboys, or at least I am, that I fully recognize that I was not going to be able to evaluate this in any level of fairness, so we just decided to not. And we're putting it aside, and this is the Digital Era Bias Award, Code Geass, Rosé, the Recapture. You need to watch the original Code Geass to really appreciate it. It could probably be watched in a vacuum, but you will not get nearly the same level of satisfaction, but it was really freaking good. But it also wasn't technically a new season of normal Code Geass. It was a separate one, so it would have potentially been eligible. It's also in this gray area, so that made creating the Digital Era Bias Award even easier because, it just means we don't need to worry about that. So, Digital Era Bias Award 2024 goes to Code Geass, Rosé, the Recapture. The next one we have is the Judge's Guilty Pleasure Award, and this one I do think we're going to keep because this gives us an excuse to spotlight something that we know does not deserve to be in our top 10, that doesn't deserve to be in the honorable mentions. In the past, we have occasionally slipped in ones that we knew really probably weren't as quote-unquote deserving just because there was something about it that we really liked. But we decided this time, okay, let's actually just make its own sort of separate caption award. I suppose this is also the best time to give an aside of our general evaluation. And sorry, Jason Neo Ivan, I know I've been monologuing. I will be letting you all speak a lot more shortly. But that we evaluate things in a very unscientific way. A lot of it is, as these types of awards are done for content creators, YouTubers, streamers, what have you, based on feel and to a degree based on personal preference, but not entirely. That we very much do take a critics and critical eye to things and say, what do we think was objectively well made? What had good performances? What had good writing? What do we think will stand the test of time? What do we think perhaps had something important to say or covered content that might not be done as commonly? This then also gets blended in with our personal preferences. What did we enjoy? And also the simple fact, we watch a lot of anime here. I will say that we absolutely watch more anime than the average viewer. We probably are in, that top 5 to 1% of anime viewers in terms of episodes, minutes watched per year. We don't watch everything. There are blind spots. There are shows that we just didn't get to. There are very
was
few
in our
people.
blind spot.
Yeah, there are very few people who don't have blind spots, so deal with it. But yes, Jace, I will let you handle the Judge's Guilty Pleasure Award because I feel that you and I were very much aligned on this one and that we had equally eyed putting it in honorable mentions. And there was even a moment where we were like, do we just slip it into top 10? Do we just put it at number 10 and just sort of move on from there? And we're like, no, we probably can't.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't an anime for all time.
No.
This is very much an anime of its time period because it's in the cultural zeitgeist of the now, which would be, of course, VTubers, streamers. This is what is popular now. I'm sure VTubers will continue to be popular as it is a, medium that can be enjoyed by people, now,
Yeah, but then
then,
also
forever.
we're just VTuber fans here. Surprise, surprise.
Exactly.
If you're new here, this might be news to you. If you've been here for, I don't know, a week, this is not news to you.
Wait, what's a VTuber?
It's what happens when you digitize a potato.
Oh, okay. So GLaDOS.
Yes, correct.
Yes, exactly.
Wait, it's VTuber Legend.
Yep, VTuber Legend, which was just, I mean, It was hilarious because there are just moments on this show that you'd sit there and watch and go, and you'd have to stop and think for a few seconds because you have to remember that this anime is being based off of something that was written a few years ago, but yet is also
As timely
being,
as it gets and as accurate as it gets.
yeah, like, to things that are very recent. Like, some of the behavior of the main character is on par with things that we are seeing in real time with actual VTubers.
That one thing I've been on record as saying
Ollie.
is there were a couple of episodes where I watched this show and said, I don't know, this is kind of pushing it. I feel like they're being a bit too extreme in some of these characterizations. Maybe they're being a bit too lewd in, would corporate VTubers actually be able to get away with this? I'm not sure. And then I see clips of Crazy Ollie and I'm like, oh no, this is terribly accurate. Oh no.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, like, it's I
Or
mean,
Kiara and her Austrian soccer team. If you know, you
mhm.
know.
mhm.
There's
I mean,
plenty of good stuff here. If you're a VTuber fan, that it it is clearly a series that was made by people who enjoy VTubing. That the
yeah,
VTubing, now that it is in the cultural zeitgeist, especially in Japan, it's finding its way either incidentally or more than incidentally to a number of series. And some of them, I don't want to say that they belittle VTubing. I actually think it's been regarded rather respectfully basically every time I've seen it in anime. But sometimes they either oversimplify things or just minimize things in a way of, oh, it's a thingy, and that you can tell it's being done because it is in the cultural zeitgeist, but it's not necessarily being given the detail and depth that something like that has. VTuber Legend, it's in the title. It's very fun. It's very good. It's also not a top 10 show nor an honorable mention,
yeah.
but we like it. So, on to the honorable mentions. And Neil Ivan, I'm going to let you take the first one. Let's go with, and these are unordered, by the way. Our honorable mentions are just sort of a cluster of 6. Um, Looking at our spreadsheet, Neil Ivan, the bottom or the second and third from the bottom, I think either of those are ones I'm pretty sure that you have seen and can definitely speak to.
So I guess I'll just talk about both of them then.
Yeah, go right ahead.
These two honorable mentions are anime that I've been shouting from the rooftops for everyone to watch, and one of them actually was my number 2 on my personal top 10. Uh, First one we'll go with is Terminator Zero. If you are a fan of the Terminator franchise and have been very upset with the recent movies, this is the show for
I will
you.
not forgive them for squandering the talents of Matt Smith. He's a good actor who is given garbage scripts. He's better than he was in
Very true.
Terminator. He's better than he was in Morbius. If
Oh,
you've seen
absolutely.
Doctor Who, he can act very
Oh god,
well.
yeah.
And I'm
Mhm.
not going to begrudge him. If Terminator comes to me, if Marvel comes to me with a script and they're like, "We want you for this role," I'm not blaming him for taking those roles. Geez, they could have given him more to work with. Anyway, sorry about that.
It's okay. But yes, if you are a fan of Terminator Zero, or if you're a fan of Terminator, this is the show for you. It takes it in a very good direction for the entire franchise. And if the owners of the property, who I forget they are, but if they're smart and and if Terminator Zero did good numbers, they will move away from Sarah and John Connor and constantly just. I know time travel can get really timey-wimey and all really crazy, but this is a real good and fresh step in the very right direction. And plus, keep in mind, folks, the show Terminator Zero takes place in Japan.
Yeah.
You
I
have a
I will
Terminator
say
on you.
I will
Where are you
say
going to get
that,
firearms?
as
How are you going to
as
protect yourself?
I didn't get a chance to finish it. I started watching it, and Production IG was the studio to put on it, as
Hmm.
they have history with Cyberpunk, namely Ghost in the Shell. If you like Ghost in the Shell, you will like this. Think of it as alternate universe Ghost in the Shell, in which Ghost in the Shell doesn't happen, Terminator does. Because
Mhm.
that's basically what this is. From what I had seen, it was basically, it felt like Ghost in the Shell until, oh, he's in the cop uniform. Duh, 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 duh. I'm
Yeah.
like, there we go. Now it's
Yeah.
Terminator.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I,
And
I I'm curious to see if they do more with it actually beyond there, because it has potential. It
yeah,
is it was really good from
yeah.
what I had seen so far. I hope to finish it.
I hope that they continue with it as well. Moving on to the next one that I know I've watched and also shouted from the rooftops for Gundam fans to watch as soon as possible. Gundam Requiem for a Vengeance. Now, I was perplexed because we're following the Xeon. If
Not the
you
first
know,
time.
it's not the
Not
first
the first
time.
time.
It's not the first time, but it is
Double
still,
080.
but it is still like, why do I care about I don't want to root for these people. They make you not necessarily sympathetic or with their cause or anything, but they'll be like, "Oh, how are you going to survive this?" Because
Mhm.
this is all I'm going to say. They treat the Gundam like a kaiju,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
and it
heard
is
this
beautifully
compared
done.
to. So I've seen the first 3 episodes that I watched them yesterday, haven't had a chance to finish it. Keep in mind, the only Gundam series that I have seen is Witch from Mercury. Yes, I've seen Code Geass. Code Geass takes a lot of notes, and one could even almost say it's a spiritual successor in a way to Gundam, also being done by Sunrise, but that I don't have, universal Sentry knowledge to pull on. I know of the Xeon, conceptually, but if there were references to any other characters or events that were known, things that Gundam fans would get, they would be lost on me. I was thoroughly enjoying this series, and I do plan to finish it. Um,
I
and
can say,
based
like,
on,
I watched this with my mom. My mom is not an anime fan.
hmm
She thoroughly enjoyed it. She was asking a
yeah,
lot of questions. I have watched the original Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam, or 0079, if you will. I have watched that, so I am familiar to a degree with Universal Century. So I was able to explain things to a degree.
that,
It has its quirks, but
yeah,
it stands strong on its own. It
for
is a good
sure.
way to introduce people to Gundam as a concept,
And if
because it's
anything,
Gundam
yeah.
as a war story.
That's it. That's what I was
Mhm,
going to say, that it
mhm.
is very akin to Star Wars Rogue One in that it is a proper war story in a more fantastical universe, that it's very grounded. Um, and I think, you know, again, not a dyed in the wool Gundam fan, but from what I know of Gundam, from what I know of a lot of those series, that they are about war. And I think that it is a interesting look into and reminder of there are humans on both sides of conflict in real life and in these fictional ones, and that while there may be higher forces, command culture, and other things that, when looked at through the lens of history, you can clearly say these are our villains. That in these moments, there is still the humanity of these are people looking to live, to protect their families, to protect their homes. We are not going to postulate of who is in the right or what is deserved or anything, but I think that that is part of why you are able to overlook, Ivan, the fact that, you, as someone who objectively knows the full scale of things, are not
Mhm.
inclined to root for Xeon, but that you are able
Yeah.
to, for this series, overlook and thoroughly
I
enjoy it and be
mhm.
able to uh,
They
feel
do
for
a
the
good
characters in a way.
job
They
of trying to make you feel for those characters.
they
Like,
Yeah.
they
the
do.
main
It's more.
character being like, she's a mom, and
Yeah. I
like,
also like that it's not necessarily that they're trying to win, they're trying to survive.
Mhm.
exactly.
And that to me is what nailed it on the head.
Yeah. That it would be much more difficult if this were them attempting to complete a siege or, some more active operation versus survive and get home to their families. But
Mhm.
we have a lot more shows, so I'm gonna jump through. And also, I realize I accidentally did skip over our third special award. We will do that after after honorable
Honorable
mentions,
mentions.
before
Yeah.
the top 10. Um, Jace, one that we shuffled actually pretty last minute into the honorable mentions was one that you finished and really enjoyed. So how about you take that one?
So, Magilumiere Magical Girls Inc. Was quite the unique take. I love unique takes on existing tropes, and this was basically what if magical girls were tech startups? And yeah, like there was just something about that that worked so well and was so enjoyable. Whether it was the designs or the world that they lived in was so entertaining that the only complaint I have is that it was on Amazon Prime, and that was what was making it so hard to remember to watch.
Mhm. Yeah.
Eventually I went back to it and watched it. Similar to Girls Band Cry, which was one of those ones that didn't come out initially, got released as a paid series, and then got a full series release on Crunchyroll like late
7
last
months
year.
later or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Boo.
boo to that release schedule with that. But anyway, I digress. Magilumiere is something that if you got Amazon Prime, uh, definitely check it out. Do not let this one slip by you. I believe it did get picked up for a second season as well. So I hope that more eyes get put on this show because it's just such a freaking cool concept.
I didn't
Mhm.
finish it, but it is a very solid entry into the magical girl variant subgenre. And that it is, for a minute, we had the dark magical girl subgenre that was very much spearheaded by Madoka Magica. And then it was, magical girl death games, grim dark for probably a good 5 years. And I feel like now we're getting into this new subgenre era where it is just twists on magical girls
Yeah,
of,
like we did
you
have
know,
magical girls, but kinky too
yeah,
earlier this
we
year.
had magical girls but kinky, we had, magical girls who get, dragged into the villains, but don't really want to, but are acting as sort of cheerleaders, and there's plenty of variants. It's a good time to be a magical girl fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out if you can.
Yeah.
It's a good show.
Next one I will take, and it is Makine Too Many Losing Heroines, or as I've been lovingly calling it, Makine Too Many Bow Ties,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
I
oh
think
yeah.
everybody's
Oh
been
yeah.
there are
calling it that.
but it's so good. But this is
Yeah.
probably my pick for best pure rom-com of the year. Full stop. The characters are all more than one note. The setup and premise of they aren't even necessarily, or sorry, our protagonist is not necessarily looking for love. That he just wants to be a guy. He considers himself, his goal in life is to be that background character. And in a world where there are so many shows where this is mostly in the isekai genre, that people, oh, I want to be a background character. I want to live a normal life. And oh, darn it, I turn out to be the most powerful. And I guess I'm getting dragged into things and I'm now the main character. Oh, woe is me. The main character and the characters at large of Machine are background characters. They are normal people. This is not a grand story. They are not running even for student council president or anything, that they are just folks. They have their club, and that certainly, everyone is the main character of their own life, but this guy is actually living his dream of, in the grander scheme of things, just being a background character, being a guy, and that perhaps he has a good approach to life, and being removed, being that background character, gives him the vantage point of just enough distance to be able to see the forest for the trees and be able to give occasional advice to some other folks who, as their own protagonists of their own lives, uh, have just taken a loss of being rejected or otherwise not having their feelings reciprocated by folks. And are there perhaps, seeds of potential relationships with the protagonist? Yes and no. Certainly, yes, with one in particular, but I do like that this is not a harem show. That depending on how you read and watch it, you could there's going to be fanfics of this being a harem show. I do not consider it a harem show.
Oh, for sure, and I agree.
Yeah.
It's not harem
Um,
at all.
but I think it was very fun, gorgeously animated, and
Mm.
just very thoughtful in its writing. So this actually would be in my personal top 10. As always happens with us here, we have a bit of wheeling and dealing to get our group top 10, but I think this one's fantastic. For the last two of honorable mentions, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night is one that I know, Jace, you saw. Ivan, I
Yep.
don't think you saw.
It's on my very long list.
That, like,
I saw the premiere actually
that's
at
right, you did,
Boston.
yes. Yeah, and
And
it held up it was so difficult to choose between this and Girls Band Cry. We ultimately sort of gave it to this one, but you can't go wrong with either. They're both
yeah,
girls doing musical things, having good writing, good production values, very different artistic
very
styles,
different.
but they nail both of their respective styles. We chose to give the nod to Jellyfish, but I've actually been seeing Girls Band Cry, frankly, on more other people's lists. So
I
go
I
watch
feel
both
like
if you get the
this.
chance.
I feel like we gave this one a bit more of a nod because this does fit in with our bias slightly because of the fact
Interesting,
that
huh? Hadn't thought
there
about that.
there's the character who's the VTuber in the
I
show.
don't think that's the one. I think perhaps one because you had seen the premiere and it came out earlier and didn't have the
True.
delay. I think it
Yeah,
being
it
able to
didn't have
watch it
that
week over
delay.
week
Yeah.
for us
There are
made it
some
stand up
people who
more.
do watch things as it comes out by any means necessary, whereas we do tend to stick to legal means.
Yes. Oh, yes.
That
That is one other thing that
Mhm.
hasn't been terribly relevant this year. It has been more relevant in other years. That for our consideration, uh, eligibility has to be a
Officially licensed.
new series,
licensed.
Emmy rule, etc., and has to be legally watchable in the U.S. on a
Yep.
platform. And
Yeah.
that Girls Band Cry,
I
as we
mean, if
mentioned, had that
you
sort
got a
of delay.
VPN, I mean, that's great and all,
But,
but
yeah.
Could you extend that to us, and then we'll
Yeah.
consider it?
um,
so we
but
are not sponsored by Nord or Surfshark.
no. But Jellyfish and Girls Band Cry, it was a very good year if you like girls doing music series, or if you just like music
Yep.
series in general. They were both great. The last
But
of the
rounding up
honorable
the honorable
mentions
mentions,
is
yep,
one
would
that
be
if we don't have a number 11, like we said, the honorable mentions are very much clustered on ranked. If there was to be a number 11, it would probably have been Kaiju number 8.
and this is on my top 10. Like much like how Maki is on your top 10, Kaiju number 8's on my top 10. I've been collecting the manga. I am a noted tokusatsu
Die
aficionado.
Hard.
Like
You don't
hard. Yeah.
say.
Yeah,
Really?
surrounded by toys and
This is the first I've heard
and
of this.
Blu-rays, and but like we're talking production IG, one of the greats, assisted by Studio Kara, Hideaki Anno's studio, the studio that also worked on Shin Kamen Rider and Shin Ultraman, doing the kaiju animations and production for this show. It was just a perfect
It's
storm.
very good.
It is so good.
It's
And
nice
then
to
of
see a
course,
shonen about a older character, quote unquote older, being 30 years old.
yeah,
Not
you
in high
know,
school, distinct adult.
exactly. I mean, and granted, his sidekick, if you want to call him that, is the younger character, like
We gotta have
who's
something for the
supporting him,
kids to identify
you
with.
know. But I mean, at the same time, like they play off each other well. Like, and the thing is that like again, I am 10 plus volumes into this with the manga. I will say that the cast of characters gets even better and better as the show goes on. I'm looking forward to the movie that's coming out. There is a second season coming out this year too, so woohoo. This is something that I'm looking forward to seeing the fandom grow with, because similar to something like Dragon Ball into Dragon Ball Z and everything, how like Goku got older, and people eventually found themselves in that position where Goku has kids, and the people who grew up with Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z introduce their kids to that franchise, I find that people are going to grow up and find themselves feeling like Kafka one day, or myself being, technically older than Kafka, like finding this franchise and going like, feeling very much in that same position of, like I feel like this is going to hit people harder as it goes on. I'm glad that it's getting animated now, and I'm glad that this is catching on because I feel like this is only going to pick up more steam. I feel like this is the perfect time for this franchise, and that's why it's on my personal top 10, and I'm glad that it's at least here in our honorable mentions. But there are much stronger things to come in our proper top 10. But wait,
Yes.
what's
But
what's this?
first, uh,
Something just teleported into to get an award.
yes, it did. Little under a year ago now in March, we lost Akira Toriyama very suddenly, and it was a big deal for the anime industry and fans alike. We had an entire episode memorializing him. Not going to regurgitate everything here, but that is a name that is going to live on in the anime zeitgeist and history probably forever. Akira Toriyama
Oh, yeah.
literally changed the game, and
Yeah.
to see that he actually had not one but two series this year that he had, you know, active work on. We considered putting them or one of them in honorable mentions, and like we said, as we were creating the other Guilty Pleasure and Digital Era Bias Awards, we realized we're just going to make, for this one time, the Akira Toriyama Memorial Award because it felt right to call, to shout these out. And,
2024, the year of Toriyama.
that while we could have shoehorned one into honorable mentions just to sort of make a point about it, having them separate and, properly put the man's name on it. So the Akira Toriyama Memorial Award goes to Sandland and Dragon Ball Daima, which were both received incredibly well. Daima in particular has seemed to
Yeah.
be overperforming. That
The
people weren't
fans
sure,
have
but
been loving Daima. I haven't
Mhm.
been able to keep up with it, but I did watch all of Sandland as it came out, and as somebody who read Sandland when it was first published in Viz's monthly Shonen Jump here in the United States. Sandland is a one-volume manga. It was a one-shot that he did, and the first 6 episodes, which are a standalone movie with a little additional content, are a faithful representation of that original one-shot. With the latter half of the anime uh, being very blatantly shilling most likely for that game. I still
Hmm.
haven't played the game, but from what I heard, this is basically, kind of the teaser to get you invested in. And I'll say, I got a PS5 now. I want to pick up Sandland, because the story presented in that second half of the show uh, got me invested even more. I want to see more with these characters, and I'm glad that Toriyama was able to bring more to life in that world of Sandland because they are fun characters. It's a fun world. It's a fun little alternate universe. The fact that Deborah. I think that it was Deborah in Dragon Ball Z, the devil guy in the Majin Buu arc, is literally the devil, the father of Beelzebub in Sandland. So there's this kind of implication that Sandland is a parallel world, like an alternate dimension to the Dragon Ball Z world. It's like, oh, Toriyama's got like this kind of multiverse going on. It's like it really makes you wonder what else he could have built up. And then
Yeah.
Daima came out dealing with the demon world, and you're going, oh, it's all connected.
Yep.
So it's like,
I do wonder if he's left notes. I would not
yeah,
be
I'm wondering about
surprised.
that.
You know, I'm glad that both of these were able to get off the ground before he passed because,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's notes of a sort, and the question is just
I
how much of it
I'm curious to
got
see
written
how
down.
much he left behind
Hmm.
for the future because I would love to see more.
Yeah, but again, we salute Akira Toriyama, and that award obviously will not be back
Check
next
out
year.
Sandland.
But
Check out Sandland. It's on Hulu, and Daima is on all major platforms.
yes, indeed. And now for the Digital Era Entertainment DEE Kai 2024 Top 10. Starting with number 10, I gotta say, one, while we always do a lot of wheeling and dealing here, and this year's rankings weren't as obvious as some of the past years. Sometimes we go in just like sort of snap, we know most of it, and then are filling in the last two or three. We had to figure out really most of them. But the more that I've looked at these, and we actually made a couple of last minute changes, but I look at our list now and say I do like our list and how it wound up. And we've got some hot takes here. We've got some ones that I don't think you will see on other lists. We've got some things that will be consistent with other lists. But number 10 is Yakuza Fiance. And while I said that Nakaine was my favorite rom-com of the year, I will stand by that. Yakuza Fiance is not, at least for me, I consider it not quite a rom-com. It is a romance series, and there is comedy. It is not a conventional rom-com because it asks the question, okay, what if it, we talk about series where there's a crazy girl or a crazy guy, but what if both were crazy? What if we then
they're both off the deep end?
What if they're both off the deep end, but also you then add in the sort of political marriage and political maneuverings that would be more iconic of nobility series of not perhaps medieval, but fantasy and those sorts of, royal court and different families. But, it's Yakuza, and they have the families literally and figuratively and political dealings of their own sort. These are two characters that, while they are technically in high school, I always need to be reminded that they're in high school. I think they're like 24. That
they come across as being much older.
And I think that's a function of how they were raised in the worlds that they come from, that they were forced to mature much faster than most people their age, and that carries into their characters throughout the series.
It also makes it so much more enjoyable because usually in a rom-com environment, you get much younger characters. It's usually high school love. And these are high schoolers who are acting much more mature than they are.
They're also not in love.
They are not.
One of them is, sort of.
Except when they're not being mature.
But there's good writing, there's really fun character moments, and there's also just good communication.
Yeah.
When they have an issue,
things...
they talk it out. Sometimes it's after a little bit of cold shoulder, but it's sort of a healthy amount that they both, most of the time,
they go to extremes that really, my God.
They do, but it's such a fun series. It's very good. It's very unique. This is a flavor that you don't normally get. So Yakuza Fiance is number 10. Number 9 is our hottest take of all.
Yeah, you'd think this would be much higher up on the list given how hot this was.
The lowest I've seen it on a lot of other places is like number 4. And even that YouTuber had to sort of justify and step back and say, hey, I know I'm probably going to get flack for this. Number 9 is Dan Da Dan. Deal with it.
Dan Da Dan, Dan Da Dan, Dan Da Dan, Dan Da Dan, Dan Da Dan.
Dan Da Dan is a very, very good series. And I know, Neil Ivan, you had this as your number 1. This one, that you had some strong words for me when I was like, I don't know if it's top 10 at all.
I wouldn't say strong words. I wanted to get I wanted to pick your brain, and we had a amicable discussion. I did not dangle him over the edge of the gazebo. Thank you very much.
But for me,
that was RJ.
Dan Da Dan is a very good series. It is a very good series. It has good production values. It has a very interesting world. I think that part of it is that battle shonens just don't hit for me like they used to. That I'm someone who really focuses a lot on the writing and the characters, and the writing and the characters here are good. They are very good. They are distinctly above average for a shonen battle series, no question. And the series, there is basically nothing that I can look at and say, oh, this was done poorly. I just think that there were 8 other series that did things better.
I will say the show is very fun. I watched it dubbed, um, and Turbo Granny by far steals the show because of the fact that it's Rita Repulsa's voice.
Mhm.
So anybody with nostalgia for the 90s who watched Power Rangers, oh, I've got such a headache. To hear that voice come out of the Maneki Neko is so freaking funny.
Mm.
But like for me, of course, I've got my Toku bias, and this show is steeped in so much freaking Toku imagery and referentia, especially that opening. That like
It
for
has one of the
me,
2 best openings of the year, in my opinion.
oh, that too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
creepy nuts don't miss. I mean, they've been knocking it out of the park since Call of the Night. But I
Yeah.
digress.
Neil Ivan, for
Uh,
you, this was your number 1.
Yes.
Go off, my
please,
man.
please gush, man.
Well, for me, it's number one because I was so excited every week to watch it. I was like practically almost begging my spouse to watch it, and we had a nice little routine for it. But I am also I'm fatigued of Battle Shonen because I mean, I've been watching them since Dragon Ball Z, and then when you know the pattern, you're like, okay, whatever. But for me, this was more than a battle shonen. This was at first and foremost of kind of a romance and a budding relationship anime between two people who one doesn't believe in ghosts, the other doesn't believe in anime in aliens, and then oopsie doopsie, they're both real, and now you have to deal with it. And as you said, these two characters have communication stumbles, but they're communicating with each other. They're becoming good friends. Maybe romance is on the horizon. And I have spoiled myself a little bit of what comes in the manga, so I'm very excited about what comes next. And I just love the characters, the choices that some of them make. Like I hated oh, I forgot her name, but the one who becomes the pink-haired demon lady. If you know
Oh
if you've
yeah,
seen that
yeah.
episode, then you see like at first I was like, "Ooh, I don't like you at all." Wait a minute, why are you going through character growth so fast, so soon? Oh my
We
god.
do
You're
love a
actually
good enemies to friends arc.
yeah, and they pulled that off really well. Like normally this takes the course of like 4 or 5 episodes. They condensed that down to 3, including one episode that will punch you in the feels. So for me, the show has quite a lot of really good stuff, and it's my number one. I understand why it is not everyone's because I'm a filthy anime casual. It's a lot easier for me to watch a few shows and go that one, that one.
Thinking more on it,
Not necessarily following the flow
yeah.
because I had no idea about the show. I knew nothing about it when I first started watching it, except that the first episode could be rough for people who weren't prepared for it. But getting beyond that, yeah,
No.
I could gush, but we have
Yeah, this
more
is
things
certainly
to.
a heralded, anticipated show. It's going to be number 1 on a lot of lists this year, or probably at least top 3 on a lot of lists. I think to sort of put a bow on why for me it's so low, I think there's a couple of main issues. The first, it's looking to be a longer battle shonen, as most battle shonens are. And since you only get 12 episodes, that means you're still in the very formative spots that series that are designed to be 12 or 24 episodes are going to have faster pace. I'm certain Don is going to be more than 24 episodes. It's probably going to be more than 50. So, for being only the first season right now, it hasn't had the chance to do a lot. And I think that's potentially part of why it hasn't hit as hard because others have gotten to farther in their respective stories. So, I think Battle Shonen, for our particular system, are actually working on a handicap. 2, I think a
Yeah,
lot of the strengths of Don, I have too many recent memories of other series doing similar things very well. Or, sorry, doing similar things, but better. While Don is still doing them very well, that it being a more well rounded series, entirely frankly, it means that it's not able to necessarily do any of those one things, home run out of the park, but it is operating on a high level in similar ways to My Hero Academia, where, I've always lauded that show as something that doesn't rewrite the formula, but just executes on its tropes with a consistent high performance. For the romance part, I think Makine did it better. I'm just going to say episode 7, I will say I think Demon Slayer does that better. Action, I think it is up there. I think certain pieces of animation other series do better, but it's still like 80th, 90th percentile on all these things. It's so good. So definitely
I
do
want to
not
say
take
that
my 9 as saying that you shouldn't watch it. You should watch Dan to Dan, and it
this
deserves
is
most
Battle
of the hype.
Shonen goes fully coolly.
That is a very good analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and to that extent, I really love it. And I mean, again, if you are a Toku fan, do not pass this up. You will catch the references. They are very, very heavy-handed, especially Ultraman. It is very noticeable very early on. If you're an Ultraman fan, you'll be like, that's it. Like, you're going to be doing the freaking Leonardo DiCaprio point.
Well, I do have to say, though,
if I had a nickel for every time
there was an anime on this list that was a battle shonen with very strong rom-com vibes about it that was done and then back to back.
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Because our number 8 is Ranma 1/2. Jace, you want to take this one?
Man. Mappa knocked it out of the park with this one. This is Rumiko Takashi's seminal rom-com battle anime about a young boy who
fell into the gender fluid.
And the boy's father who fell into the panda fluid.
I mean, you're not wrong. And then another guy who fell into the pig fluid.
Yep.
Those jokes don't work nearly as well.
Don't work nearly as well. But we digress with the fluid jokes. This was an amazing reboot. As somebody who has watched the original, hell, I've got the SNES game.
Is it any
and
good?
I mean, here's a fun fact. There were 2 SNES games. One of them, they actually redid all of the sprites and removed all of the anime references, changing all of the characters over because they didn't think anime would sell. The other one, Viz, partially had a hand in and actually like worked on to at least name the characters properly and whatnot. It's very color by numbers fighting game. I mean, everybody was trying to be Street Fighter back in the day.
But anyways, for the anime, it
for
looks
the
good,
anime,
it sounds good, it's very
it looks
funny.
good, it sounds good, it's funny. I mean, Megumi Hayashibara even came back to play Ranma-chan. I mean, that was my big thing going into this, was knowing that some of the original cast was coming back and Megumi was coming back to play Ranma. I was not going to watch this dubbed. I was going to watch it subbed because I wanted that original vibe, and it delivers so well. Hell, we even discovered a odd little quirk that some things on Netflix actually feature both closed captioned English and subtitled English. In the case of Ranma, where the dubbed English is the localized track for the closed captioning. And then there's the subtitled English track, which is the actual literal translation. And they are radically divergent in some episodes. So by all means, if you want a real fun experience, go back, rewatch the show with English, but with the subtitle track, so you can see just how different they are in some instances. When the guy said Nanu Nanu in English, that's when I did the double take. I went, what?
Robert Williams, what are you doing here?
That's the thing. The joke is that the commentator trails off into nonsense, and in Japanese, the nonsense doesn't translate well into English. So the guy makes a bunch of like 80s and 90s references, including I I've fallen and I can't get up. Where's the beef? And Nanu Nanu. And I was just like, what?
And
So yeah, it's on Netflix right now, and by far one of the coolest things out there is the fact that there is an option to flip between closed captioning for English or the subtitle track. Check it out.
yeah,
You'll
and if you've
you'll
never
have
seen
some
the original,
variety.
now's the time to watch it. It is
Yeah,
fantastic.
the pacing is much more streamlined with this too. And then you got Mappa, they know how to do fights. The fights in this beat the hell out of the original because let's face it, the budget just wasn't there. The budget was not there, and you could only do so much with hand painted cells back in the day. Digital animation, you can go so much harder. CG can aid so much more for special
And
angles and certain fights.
And the art and medium itself has just developed that we have techniques and people who are experts nowadays that just that's how most artistic mediums go over time,
Yeah.
that they evolve and improve as a baseline. You definitely see that here. Alrighty, moving on to number 7. This is one that was definitely top 5 for me. It is a strong cup of tea. It's one that not everybody is going to like, and I can't talk about it too much, and I feel justified because one of the other YouTubers that I very much enjoy also is in a position where, like, I can't tell you why this show is so good because it is a spoiler. Go watch
Mhm.
Orb. Go watch
Ponder
Orb
the
on
Orb.
the movements of the Orb. Ponder the Orb. It's a show about
Orb.
pondering the orb. It is. That's the entire premise of the show. All I can say is it is a story about people who are trying to prove the theory of heliocentrism, which is the fact that the sun is at the center of our solar system, and that geocentrism, the concept of the Earth being not only at the center of our solar system, but at the very center of the universe itself, is false. This is not entirely based on real events, but based on real history of, back in the 15th century, Catholic Church, very strict dogma of the earth is at the center of the universe. This is the way it is. Anyone who says otherwise will be burned at the stake. Because it seems like such a simple thing of why is it so important where we are in the universe in that sort of pseudo geographical sense, and that it is a matter of belief and order and control, frankly. Because if it is proved that this thing that the church has vehemently said, this is the truth, this is how things are for, at that point in time, centuries, it's proven to be false. Well, what else might not be true? What else might the church be wrong about? And they cannot have that doubt. So they will guard it and they will protect it by any
And they
means
will burn.
necessary. Yes. And this is a
so-
story about, for a scientist, what does it matter proving whether or not, especially in that era, you're not going to leave Earth. You're probably not going to ever leave your country, let alone your continent. What does it matter
your
of the
village.
proof of where the Earth lies in the broader solar system? That is a matter of just pure scientific drive, human emotion and pride, and the scientific method and what drives people in the pursuit of knowledge itself. It is a very good series. It is something that you do not get normally in anime. It is something you do not get normally in media across all mediums. It's not something that I've seen with any recent memory in live action, certainly. It's not something I've seen, in just books, in comics. This is, if you've gone through the American education system, you learned, in all likelihood, that, all right, at one point in time we thought the Earth was the center of the universe. Now we know the sun is the center of the solar system, neither of which is at the center of the universe itself. Very simple things. That is considered science and astronomy 101.
Yep.
And that was not always the
Mhm.
case. And how did we get there from here? Orb is not going to give you an accurate historical representation of that. Don't go writing a book report on this, at least not from the scientific historical side. But
Yeah.
from an emotional, practical side, there are very much echoes of reality here, and even if the people involved in this story did not exist in our world, they're people that could have.
They certainly do
And
feel real, and I've only seen 3 episodes, and I agree that the show belongs on all these lists, but I have to caution all of you because the this is
it is
based on
intense, and there
historical
is a
events.
violence warning here.
There is a lot of violence, especially towards, characters that should be immune from violence, you would think, but oh no, no one is
The
immune.
church did not care.
Mm-mm. So let that not necessarily a trigger warning, but just a
Yeah, it's
warning
just
that
I
this
would
is
call it more of
not.
like a squeamish warning.
Yeah, it's a squeamish. You have to be in the mood for a historical
Mm,
Yeah.
piece of, yeah, and
But this
plus
is
that
one
this
that
anime
will
it's
takes place.
heavy.
it's
It's
heavy,
very
but it will
whoa,
grip
this is
you. If
heavy.
you find yourself watching one episode, you're probably going to watch 3, and then you're probably gonna watch the rest.
Mm,
So go watch Orb.
go watch Orb for the Orb.
And once again, I get to use this.
If I had a nickel for every time,
There was a Yakuza series in our top 10,
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
because number 6 is The Fable. Jace, this was one of your really big ones, and we've certainly
Yeah.
spoken about it a lot over the course of the year. It was a big topic of discussion the season it was airing. Here it is at number 6. I'll let you take it.
So yeah, this has a very slow start to it. I am a big fan of Yakuza type stories, Yakuzas, punks, delinquents, anything like that. Especially this year was very big. We did get the release of the Like Dragon series on Netflix too, or
I think
Netflix,
it was
Amazon
Amazon.
Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amazon. Unfortunately, that was not that good, but the Fable was very good. As we get the story of a master assassin who has to go undercover, so to speak, off the grid and not kill. So him and his, I guess you could say, handler slash partner,
Yeah.
are living the simple life as pretending to be siblings and supposed to be living on the down low, but of course certain circumstances will not let that happen.
I was mentioning this
And
as something in isekai and other fantasy ones of, oh, I am very powerful and wish to live a peaceful life, and oh no, I am being dragged into things again. You get that here. You get it less often in a Yakuza sense than you get in fantasy worlds, and I think that counts for something. The characters
and
here are very good. The writing is very good. The circumstance is good. It keeps you on the edge of your seat once you get past episode 3. I'm
he's
very
a lovable idiot too, because the thing is that he is good at one thing and one thing only: killing.
he's neurodivergent. There's zero
Extremely
question.
neurodivergent,
We're
because
not
like
going to speculate on exact flavor of neurodivergency here. He is
I mean, the
incredibly
fact that he
neurodivergent.
literally like dials into his own head, like physically touches his forehead to like do things.
But that's also a cool thing of seeing, someone who's neurodivergent being able to find the way to live and make, make their way in the world one way or
Yeah,
another.
because then you have like the guy
and
who's obsessed with him, like teaching me your ways, Oni-chan.
in that,
like
without having to get too deep into it, this is something I think we are seeing much better across the board in media, in anime
yeah,
as a whole,
yeah.
in Western media as a whole. It's good to see in that um, Fable is a very solid entry in just thriller. It's a solid entry
When it
in
goes
Yakuza
dark,
series.
it goes dark,
This is
and
one that
that's
this is one that could
that.
appeal to Western audiences. I think that if this had been
Yeah,
done in live action, which I think it might have been in Japan,
I'm. It might have
like
been. I'm not sure.
if
I know that.
if I saw something from Hollywood Reporter today that said that the license for the Fable was picked up for a Hollywood remake, I would look at that and say, oh, I think that has potential. This would be a series
Uh,
that would localize
not
very
yet.
well.
Not yet, but I wouldn't be
But
surprised
because
if that happens.
obviously they would change Yakuza to Mafia and whatever, but the core premise of, all right, this guy's an assassin for an organized crime syndicate
Oh, never
is
mind.
gonna,
Live action film came out in 2019,
yeah, that's what I thought.
along with a sequel film.
Yeah, in Japan.
Uh,
But but that I
In
think it
Japan,
could.
yeah.
I think it could come to the West and be successful.
Oh
Don't
yeah,
think it
definitely.
will, but it's a very good series. Go watch The Fable. That one's on Hulu. Number
Yeah.
5, we're getting the top 5 now. Everything here is good. Everything here is something that we're going to remember. I don't know if everyone else is going to remember all of these 5 years from now. But these are all really, really good. And Jace, I will let you take this next one as well, because I know once again this is one of your personal favorites.
This is my wheelhouse right here. This is another show that is exclusive to Hulu. This is, and God, I hate this freaking title so much. I hate the publisher of the manga for settling Kodansha on this title. Go Loser Ranger. Ranger Reject was such a better title.
I think Go Loser Ranger was the absolutely objectively correct title for the West.
Unfortunately, yes.
'Cause if you call
Ironically,
it Loser Ranger, there's too much potential, especially in the West. That are we talking Walker Texas Ranger? Are we talking like a Archer type of Ranger? As soon as you put Go and Ranger, even though it hasn't been prominent in Western mainstream pop
Hasbro's
culture,
dropped the ball with that franchise, but we'll digress for that for now because that's another story.
That anyone who grew up with Power Rangers, even if you haven't been into
30
Tokusatsu
years of that
for 30
franchise.
years, if you see Go and Ranger, you instantly know what's
Go
going
blank
on.
Ranger, yeah.
You know what it is. And
they know that Go blank Ranger is basically the format of that franchise for years.
Anyways,
And
title
Go
aside,
Loser Ranger, title aside, Go Loser Ranger, in the easiest way to describe it, is basically what if Power Rangers was the boys. You have a storyline situation in which aliens invade the Dusters, and the Dragon Rangers wiped them out. Except they've secretly enslaved them and forced them to fight every week on Sundays. A clever tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact that Sentai shows air on Sundays in Japan.
In that,
and they fight every Sunday in order to keep up the illusion, and then they sell merchandise, and they train people to fight alongside them as
what's the best
Rangers
way to bring
in
people
training
together and build up a good name for yourself, have a good enemy. And they have this endlessly regenerating enemy that they have been able
the
to
Rangers
get for them.
themselves totally scumbags.
Yup.
And what happens? One of those fighters, Fighter D, decides to revolt, sneak out from the Dusters, sneak into the Rangers as a trainer and trainee, yeah. And the story of Fighter D becoming a Ranger and taking them down from the inside begins. This is a story filled with lots of intrigue going on too, because
it's half
that there are people. Yeah, there's stuff going on where there are people who want to see like the organization come down from the inside, like.
And then, all right, who on the inside is aware of the corruption and who is actually, there are people here who are motivated by true ideals and believe that the Rangers are what they say they are, that it's only the upper echelons that are in on this secret, that most people, even in the Ranger organization and trainee program, don't know the truth.
Yeah. So there's enough intrigue going on with the storyline. So if you are a fan of Power Rangers or Super Sentai, Tokusatsu tropes, you're going to love this. But if you love a story with good intrigue as well, this has got it in spades. There is a lot at play, especially with the plot twist by the end of the season. I mean, we generally go into spoiler territory with these animated.
I avoided spoilers on Orb, so I don't want to go too far into it. But
okay, yeah. So
definitely give it a watch.
Yeah, I will say there's a big enough twist at the end of the season to make you go, oh, where are we going for season 2?
Oh, business is going to pick up.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. For number 4, Jace, do you have this on your soundboard? Thank you. I mentioned that Don Da Don had one of the 2 best openings of the year. That's the other one.
Yeah.
My Dear Friend No-Katan is, we've mentioned it, I have ranted about it. It is one of the most mid-2000s irreverent comedy shows we've gotten in a decade. It is just dumb fun. It is so dumb, parentheses affectionate. It knows exactly what it wants to be. It tells you that from the outset. There is not a moment here where it is, trying to swerve you and it's like, oh, is this actually another series? And oh, it's actually a silly comedy. No, this is a comedy, but this is the type of comedy that we don't get nearly as often as we used to. And even when held up against the comedies that we used to get more frequently, this would be an all-timer. This is something that I hold up there with Lucky Star, with the,
I'd put it up there
Nichijou.
with
It's
Excel Saga
Excel
and
Saga, and
Azumanga Daioh.
it has so much heart, so much fun. The visual gags are good. The audio gags are good. I never
The
knew that
sheer
Deer could be this funny. The fact that they have just, that they have, that they have, milked that not cow the entire time, and it never got old. It was always funny. It was always creative. It was something that I looked forward to every single week. It is, whether it's a palate cleanser, something that you watch at the end of the day, or if it's something that, you watch at the start of the day to make sure that the rest of the day that you are cheerful and happy and just feeling that little bit of silly happy-go-lucky. This was such a
Plus,
fun show.
fun fact, Koshitan's voice actress is the voice for Hatsune Miku. So yeah, have fun hearing the opening theme song or the gag where she's, singing and dancing to her own song that she wrote herself. Koshtan, Koshtan, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, have fun thinking about that and then thinking about Miku afterwards.
This is a show, the 12th episode ends in a way where if we never get another minute of that series, I will say that it ended in a satisfying manner, which you don't usually get with essentially episodic comedy series. But there
I
was,
thought that I was watching Kinnikuman for a
it
second.
was so good. But also,
I almost
it kept
expected
that,
Dick Van Dyke to show up.
but it also had that perfect openness where we could get another season of this. If we got a season of My Dear Friend No-Katan every 2 to 3 years, just whatever.
Randomly popping up.
We don't need an ongoing storyline. These characters do not need to go on a world-saving adventure.
This show is so meta, it doesn't need that. In fact,
It will have it. Yeah,
the narrator could even mention that.
time itself will become the meta, that whatever is recent and topical and funny in those 2-3 years between seasons, in this hypothetical thing, they'd be able to find stuff to do with it. I hope we get more. I don't know if we'll get more. It is difficult to tell. When I was in Japan, I heard, interestingly, it wasn't the OP that I heard in almost every anime shop I went to. It was the ED. That one was playing so many times, and I didn't see much merch, but the music, obviously, very good there, very popular, so I'm hoping
Yeah.
it did well. It's difficult to tell, especially because it had a strange release. Had a
Yeah,
moment of a big scare in the first episode when there was some really bad typos in the subtitles.
I
And
mean,
one of
it's
the
probably because of the odd distribution and production company behind it that was putting it on YouTube and then subbed on Crunchyroll and then dubbed on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it was weird,
So
but I hope we get
watch it by
more.
any means necessary.
Yes.
Because it's available in so many different forms and it's such a good show.
Now for the top 3. I have only seen 3 episodes of our number 3. Jace, you've seen all of it. This is one where you didn't watch all of Orb, Jace, because you sort of bounced off of it. It was not your cup of tea, and a strong flavor it was for Orb. Strong flavor it is for our number 3. And that I just haven't been in the right mindset to watch this one. but I have heard amazing things from you and others, and I don't know if I'm gonna watch this one, but based on what I
I
know, I will
I'm gonna
stand by it as
continue
our number
to
3.
I'm going to continue to say watch this, especially because well, it gets a bump similar to something from our previous top 10, Licorice Recoil. It gets the Kojima bump.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hideo Kojima highly praised this. Dead Dead Demons, Dead Destruction is our number 3.
The different D series on DEE Kai that isn't Dan Dan.
Yeah, this is what I was affectionately referring to as D4. Um Basically, um this is another very fully coolly-ish vibe. Um Released in Japan originally as 2 movies and then extended into an 18 episode miniseries. Um and you know what? I'm glad that they gave it room to breathe with 18 episodes. Kojima binged it. And I can see why he binged it. It is that sort of content where when the story gets rolling, you get drawn into the characters. There is so much drama in some of these moments. They handle certain very poignant moments of drama and trauma
Mm.
very strongly.
I'd like your opinion on one thing. I saw on another content creator's top 10 list, someone who I very much enjoy, they said that you should not watch episode 0 of this series first, that episode 0 should be watched last, and that by setting up the numbering the way they did, that they did a disservice to viewers. I did watch
Episode
episode
0
0
is
first.
very weird because honestly, I will say episode 0 does leave you going, "What the hell did I just watch?"
It also messes with the timeline.
Yeah, it does. Because the thing is it kind of creates like a time loop of sorts. It's
Well, not a
very
time loop, but
weird.
just it happens after most of the events of the series, from what I understand.
Yeah. It is very weird. Um the it is a very complicated story when you reach the very end of it, but there are some very cool artistic pieces at play. For example, there is a bit of flashback that is done for a few episodes where the flashback is done in 4:3 aspect ratio for the entire episode length.
Mm.
That's right. We spend several episodes in freaking 4:3 aspect ratio. That's kind of cool in my opinion, because you're so used to everything in widescreen nowadays. This really does tell you, no, this takes place in the past. This is not current to the timeline of the story. And then you find out why things happened the way they did and why that was in that aspect ratio, and it makes even more sense by the end of the series. But there's so much at play. There's drama, there's death, there's characters grieving and dealing with death. There's a very well-handled trans character in the show, actually.
Mm.
Um, there's a lot at play in this show that I enjoyed seeing. And I feel like this show, there should have been a lot more eyes on it. And I watched it dubbed. It was handled by Ocean Group. So it was a phenomenal cast with that dub as well. It came out simuldub. So every week it was dubbed and subbed same time. There was an issue with the subs at first, where the subs were actually the closed caption track being played over the Japanese. They did eventually fix that, from what I heard. But yeah, I watched it from start to finish as it released, all 18 episodes, and I think that this is going to be something that stands up, holds up over the test of time. A great drama, a great it tells a lot of different stories and themes that are very relevant to the time that we're in now.
Mm.
Dealing with having empathy for other people. I don't want to go into too many spoilers with it, because of everything that goes on in the story.
Yeah. Suffice to
But
say, Dead Dead Demons, Dead 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 Destruction is very good. It is our number 3.
yeah,
Our number 2 is probably my favorite of the year, and this one, I don't want to call it full bias because had it done if it wasn't as legitimately good as it is, it wouldn't have mattered. If anything, I would have held it very much against the series because of my bias. Because our number 2 is Spice and Wolf. Wolf meets Wise Merchant. Wise Wolf meets Merchant. I said for a very long time that Spice and Wolf was on my short list of top 3 series that I wanted to get a proper reboot, and that I very much hoped that given the current trend of proper manga or light novel faithful reboots that we've been getting, that Spice and Wolf would have its day in the sun, and it's finally getting it. And it's delivering, because what we see in the first season is mostly what you get in the original series, but tightened up. You get a bit more. The animation's obviously improved. On the dub side, you have J. Michael Tatum and Monica. I forgot the name, and I want to get this right. It's Brina Palencia. That J. Michael Tatum and Brina Palencia are reprising their roles from the original series. They were amazing back in the day, and I will actively direct people toward the dub back then, and I will do it now. Their voices, since, they were both adults back, 10, 12 years ago when they initially recorded, so their voices have not changed much at all, but that they are even better actors now than they were, and you can see them, you can hear them flexing. Just, they were already top of the line, two of the biggest names in the industry. J. Michael Tatum has been, as has Brina, and even now, to compare the two performances, the old ones are not bad, but you can hear that additional decade of experience, the subtleties, the sass, the banter between Lawrence and Holo is all-timer level for me in terms of anime banter or just character banter. It's so, so good. I cannot wait for the next season. Spice and Wolf, if you didn't see the original, you do not need to see it. Just watch this one. It's already, it is exactly what the original was, but better, with the promise of a proper ending this time, which we didn't get 12 years ago. So this is the best time to get in on Spice and Wolf. It is not what it looks like from the key art. This is the show that I have said many times over was the don't judge a book by its cover big moment for me, because key art on many things is Holo naked in the back of a wagon, which is indeed the first shot that you get of her, but that is handled with dignity. She is quickly clothed, and, it is treated as natural, not sexual. There is romantic tension between the two, certainly, but this is not an ecchi series where you might think that if you only look at the key art. This is a bait and switch. This is one of the bait and switches of all time, because they're like, oh man, sexy wolf girl. Don't you want to see the sexy wolf girl? Psych, it's medieval economics. And just, it's so good. Go watch Spice and Wolf. It's delightful.
It is.
It is probably my favorite of the year, but like I said, again, that's bias. For our number 1, historically for digital era entertainment, our number 1 has been relatively unanimous. And I think even now, the Wild Dawn to Dawn was your number 1. I think that our number 1 was still probably within your top 3 or 5, that it was close for you.
Oh, absolutely. It was. It is top 3. Top 3. It is well deserved.
That, funny enough, number 1 is actually the slot that every year is the easiest. Just, we usually end up either on the exact same wavelength or very, very close to it, where it only takes, quick, yeah, this is number 1, isn't it? Yeah. Or is it this one? Maybe, no, it's this one, and that you then have to sort out everything else. Funny enough, it is the only entry in our top 10 list from the winter season, but here it stands. The Digital Era Entertainment DEE Kai 2024 Anime of the Year is Delicious in Dungeon. It's really good.
A fantastic
It's
show.
really good.
It is
So good.
it is wholesome. It is the dub is fantastic. Pro
Yep.
Zed
I
is the voice of God, I forgot his name. But the
Senshi.
dwarf
Senshi.
Tenchi.
It's Senshi. And I've
Yeah.
said I think this is the role that will finally get Sungwon Cho Pro ZD into proper respect and prominence in the voice acting space because he's had other good roles, but coming from YouTube and content creation, a lot of people have sort of sided him like, all right, he's that guy and he can do a couple voices. I think this is the one that is going to really I think we're going to look back 5-10 years from now and very easily say this was his star making turn. This is the one that brought him to prominence. This is what is going to get him into a lot of conventions and that is going to open the door for a lot more roles to come. His performance as Senshi is incredible. You have Emily Rudd as Marcel, who plays Nami in the live action One Piece. I'm loving seeing people who are, not established names in anime voice acting specifically, but are peripheral good at acting. That Someone Show Pro ZD had done so much acting, much of his content is pre-recorded, and that, he's written bits and skits, and comedy is a thing that he has done for many years. This is not inherently new territory. It's just new professional territory of, all right, what is the production being funded by and what is the scale? And that the people who are funding those productions are now recognizing, oh yeah, this guy's good. Compound that with amazing animation, beautiful soundtrack.
Excellent
the-
world building.
I was going to say one of the best written worlds we've seen in a minute. In this day and age of the absolute glut of high fantasy series, Delicious in Dungeon is probably the world that feels the most legitimately lived in.
So
And also
I
shows that you don't need an isekai to do fantasy genre in anime. We don't need
you don't need an
isekai.
isekai and you don't need video game mechanics
Yeah.
blatantly spelled out.
That are most of these monsters classic creatures, some from video games, some from more proper mythology? Absolutely.
D&D. Yeah.
That do we
Like-
have video game-esque mechanics in the sense of, all right, we're in a dungeon and there are levels, there are floors to this dungeon, and the deeper you go, the more intense it gets. But that's also just, all right, if you go down deeper in the sea, you're going to get stranger, weirder, stronger creatures. If you go deeper into a forest, you're more likely to see more aggressive creatures, what have you. And then the fusion of fantasy logic with real world cooking science, like that, the actual science of cooking, of how do you prepare meat? How do you create certain tastes? What do you need to do to certain things? And the logic that very easily passes of, all right, if this creature were real, what would it most resemble in our world? And how does meat of that known real animal behave? All right, we shift it, but we then also have to account for this little thing. All right, it has fins or horns, and they find uses for it. And it's so creative, so fun. The characters are good, and there's the promise of a lot more than just cooking. This is a show that is not a bait and switch, but there's a distinct tonal shift, and it almost feels like a half bait and switch of, oh boy, here you get the fun fantasy cooking show. Guess what? It's actually existential crisis and politics and action, and oh my gosh, there's also what it just happened there. Why is, spoiler alert, go watch Dungeon, or go watch Delicious in Dungeon.
Go watch it right now.
Bread.
It's still my headcanon, actually, that Senshi and Flack from Borderlands 3 are the same character because they're both Sungwon Cho. It's just funny because Flack is the Beastmaster and he takes care of animals as a robot. And in this case, like, he cooks beasts as Senshi.
So,
Don't watch
yes.
this. Do not watch the show hungry. Have it
Yeah,
with
no,
pizza.
it
Have it with
follows the
pizza.
rule of anime food in which the food is, oh my god, how is it so delicious looking?
Yeah.
Especially given that the food is made from monsters. They managed to take
Mhm.
the creatures and logically turn them into food.
Yeah,
I also
which
hope
is
that it just encourages people to try different things that
Yeah, that's
I've
true
always felt
too.
that every culture has their preconceived notions of this is the type of meat that is food, but we don't eat this type of meat that, you know, in the West, we don't eat horses. Why?
Mhm.
I feel like, it's just as viable. And, yes, horses are used for other things. Cows are used for other things than their meat as well. But anyways, I digress. It's a
Yeah.
great series. Delicious in Dungeon is our anime of the year. And going just top to bottom, bottom to top, however you want to see it, one last time. The Digital Era Bias Award goes to Code Geass, Rose of the Recapture. The Judge's Guilty Pleasure Award goes to VTuber Legend. I forgot to turn off my stream, how I went viral after forgetting to turn off my stream. The Akira Toriyama Memorial Award goes to Sandland and Dragon Ball Daima. Our honorable mentions in no particular order are Magilumiere, Magical Girls Incorporated, Makaine, Too Many Losing Heroines, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, Gundam Requiem for a Vengeance, Terminator Zero, and Kaiju number 8. And going from 10 to 1, our number 10 is Yakuza Fiancé, number 9 is Dan Dadan, number 8 is Ranma 1/2, number 7 is Orb on the Movements of the Earth, number 6 is The Fable, number 5 is Go Go Loser Ranger, number 4 is My Dear Friend Nokatan, number 3 is Dead Dead Demons Dead 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 Destruction, number 2 is Spice and Wolf, and number 1 is Delicious in Dungeon. That's just about
bread
is going to do it for
bread,
us.
bread.
We will be having happy hour shortly. As always, you can follow, subscribe here on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and Blue Sky. Thank you all for waiting while we had holidays and travels and other fun things. We will be discussing, finally, the winter 2025 season next week. But until then, stay safe, stay sane, and we will see you next time on Digital Era Twitch.
bread.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us across social media for updates. Thanks for watching!